What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? We're going down south today. We got Tennessee Brando as a guest. It's funny. I've been a fan of yours ever since I got on TikTok, and we've been mutuals for a little while, but never really connected. And then I started getting a little bit more traction on YouTube, and suddenly your name started getting dropped all the time that we should do some stuff together. And I was like, I've always loved his stuff. I'll reach out to him and see. So yeah, we connected here, and now he was willing last minute to come on and be a podcast guest here because we had a different guest fall through. And we don't have a ton planned, but I think it'll be pretty easy to talk our way through this. So yeah, tell everybody. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's a couple days from the election, post-election, and this episode will be a week or two potentially after that. But
2 weeks, I think, after.
So we're just sort of reeling in the
aftermath.
Yeah.
But why don't you tell us about yourself for everybody who doesn't know who you are and all that?
All right. Yeah, it's great to be here with you guys. I'm glad you reached out and glad I could make it today. Just a little bit about myself right out of the gate. I started playing music back when I was a teenager, playing guitar, and I was playing in garage bands, and that led to me being a full-time musician throughout my 20s and 30s. And so went around my part of the world doing that for most of my life. And then it was back in 2020 during the pandemic when all the gigs dried up and had nothing else to do. I started doing a internet radio show with a friend of mine that started a radio station. I started doing kind of like a DJ thing on there. That was a lot of fun, and it kind of led to me doing what I do now. But it kind of all started inadvertently, really. There was a country singer from our part of the world named Tyler Childers, and he put out an album called Long Violent History, and it was about the police brutality. And he put out a message along with that song so that people would understand exactly what he meant by it. And when he did, people here in the South, they just started going off on the guy, saying that he was woke and saying that they would never go to another show again. And, they just really started beating him up. And so I sat down on a lawn chair outside, and I typed out this big long-winded Facebook post, that when I got done, I looked at it and I thought, ain't nobody ever going to take time to read this. They're going to see this and they're not going to scroll that far. And so I just deleted it. And then I sat there for a few minutes and I went, no, I really wanted to say that. I really wanted to make that point, because the point was, why won't people around here at least listen to one of their own, Mm-hmm. So I decided to just take my phone, and I just set my phone down in front of me there and recorded a video and uploaded it, and it caught on and went viral. And then I made another one talk about something else, and then I reacted to the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, and it went even more viral. And so it just kind of accidentally happened. I never meant to do that. I was just out playing music and then took a left turn, no pun intended, and here we are.
You started off on YouTube then, right?
Well, yeah, that first video was on YouTube, but then really it started catching on more so on the TikTok app. I had more continued videos catched on over there first, and once it picked up speed, the platform got pretty good. Then I kind of ventured over to YouTube, and it started growing over there. But it actually first blew up on TikTok, really. I mean, the first video was on YouTube, and then the ones that followed that was all on TikTok for a while.
Because I saw you got a YouTube plaque behind you there. What was that from?
I reached that was back when I reached 100,000 subscribers. I hit that back in April, and I'm already at like 338 or 340 now. So it's been a hell of a year. It's been kind of mind-boggling to me. I don't, it's all kind of happened so fast. Everything sort of blew up fast, but we've had a lot of fun up until election day, doing everything, and then now there's kind of a dark cloud hanging over us all. But I think we'll just have to buckle down and get through it.
That was kind of something I wanted to talk about. Obviously, with another creator that I'd say you've got more of a rural feel, kind of like similar rural feel to what I put out there as well. And we I think resonate with a specific type of audience that a lot of times doesn't feel like they're seen or heard in our communities. And for me, it felt like I've poured just hundreds, if not thousands of hours over the past couple of years into this, trying to educate people and trying to make them feel seen and heard and get enthusiasm and excitement about things that are important. And it hit me in the gut in a way I wasn't expecting with this election result. Is in it, it was a defeated feeling more than I've ever felt a defeated feeling in an election before, and I think I had more involvement and more skin in this game than I had ever had in any one previous. And I don't know. I had a bunch of content, my normal snarky content, queued up and ready to go after the election. Not election related specifically, but it doesn't feel the vibe now to put out, and it's been a little bit difficult to move on with it. And I was wondering, are you feeling the same? How have you been dealing with that?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, on election day, I went live around noon, and it was just kind of like a, hey, everybody, it's election day, here we are, that kind of video. And hung out with my audience for a little while live and just talked about how we felt going into it. And I told them, I was like, I'm feeling really optimistic. I woke up feeling optimistic. I thought we had it in the bag, thought everything was going to be fine. And then I did one a little bit later in the night when the results started rolling in. I went back live again, and Trump was ahead. But I was still holding out hope that maybe something would change, something would go our way.
That
And I
red
just kept
mirage.
looking over at the comments section. Yeah, I was hoping. That's what I was hoping for. And, I looked over at my comment section and I saw so many people saying we're doomed, we're screwed, it's over, and the real reality started hitting me. Well, then after that live went off, I just happened to be watching Brian Tyler Cohen when the news hit that he was the projected winner. And it just felt like such a gut punch that honestly, that night I was thinking, I don't know, like if I'm going to be able to get up the next day and do this or not. It was just one of those feelings. But then I woke up and it was like, still, it was kind of, did that really just happen? I kind of had that feeling, but then it was like, I got to get out of this bed and keep going. That's the only way that I can deal with it, is just to double down and keep going, because, originally I thought maybe I'd need to stop and pause, but I think if I'd have stopped and paused, I would have lost my mind. It was like, I don't know. I went from feeling real desperate to just like, okay, let's just get back at it.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I definitely was watching it happen and just hoping every percent or so of ballots that were counted in Pennsylvania, that like each one would get just a little bit closer to where we needed to be. And when it kept just getting a little bit further and further away, watching how much that lead for Trump kept getting bigger, I was definitely mildly depressed to just put it out there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, it's weird because we have definitely been against basically everything that Trump has said and is for up to this point. And it's weird that it's hitting so hard for a candidate that, by all intents and purposes, we don't really even like a ton of the policies potentially that she has, but it feels
You're saying that the elation of a Kamala win is probably a lot less than the devastation of the loss.
yeah.
I would agree with that. It definitely has been a long road here, and we've, I guess I know where your politics fall, but I don't know how far to the left your politics fall. Brando, are you progressive or more moderate? Where do you feel you sit at?
I feel like I'm more progressive. But I've it's funny. I've got friends that are further to the left than I am, and I've got friends that are more to the center than I am. But I'm right here in the Bible Belt in East Tennessee, so I'm in an extremely red place. So I feel far left here, even though I'm probably
Right.
not. Even though I'm not,
part
but it's just. I'm in
go
East
ahead,
Tennessee.
sorry.
I'm about 60. That's good. I'm in East Tennessee. I'm about 60 miles north of Knoxville. So
Okay, I
I'm
went to
right in
college
there.
in
I'm on
Bristol, so
okay, yeah. Well, I'm on the state line of Kentucky and Virginia, so I'm like about 10 minutes from all three states. But it's a very red part of the world, and so here it definitely, when I'm in a conversation with someone else, it feels like I'm a lot further to the left. But when I'm talking to my friends on the left, I'm probably more in the middle.
Yeah, Minnesota, I feel like I'm on the left, but not by like a crazy margin.
No.
From most of the people in my community.
yeah, I'm certainly on the left. I think you're probably a little hair to the left of me, maybe even. but certainly more progressive than I'd say the average, but definitely not a full blown communist by any
Well,
means
right. I
either.
mean, and that's why we were. That's why I say like we were more devastated that we now have to deal with 4 more years of Trump than we get to have 4 years of
Yeah.
Kamala, which
Yeah.
certainly there's no doubt would have been probably better for average Americans without a doubt, but certainly not the bastion of progressive policies and progressive thought that we would have really liked to see out of a presidential candidate. Not that that's sort of how it goes, right? Like their Democrats have almost never put somebody like
Put
that
somebody
up.
as progressive as we want for it. So,
The person who got close was Bernie, and
Yeah.
we know how that went. So
were you a Bernie guy? There we go. I guess that can be the
Yeah.
barometer. Yeah.
Yeah, I was. I was for sure. And I actually stumbled across a clip of him a while ago from like 2003, and I saw that clip and I was like, "Dang," there was a time. I mean, he was pulling huge crowds, and they had so much excitement behind him, and I think, like you said, it would have definitely been better to have Kamala Harris. But one thing that I've thought about too is that leading up to all of this, I was telling my audience, in my mind, I was thinking, I was pretty confident we were going to win it. And I was thinking, well, now MAGA or the Republican Party is going to have to rebrand. They're going to have to rebuild and rethink things. But instead it went the opposite way. And now I feel like that it's in our lap to reflect and figure out where we're going next. So, but I definitely think that we can, I think that we're reasonable people who will be able to pull together and figure out how to move forward. It's been kind of, it's kind of been tough to watch. Honestly, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but it's been kind of tough to watch. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that Kamala and Joe Biden have been respectful, and I'm glad that they took the high road and the peaceful transfer of power. But it's such one of the hardest parts for me is watching Trump treated with any bit of respect. It's like I don't think he's a person that should have ever been able to run again, and I just think he's such a disgrace as a
he
candidate.
says unity one time, and his in an hour-long speech, and his supporters are like, "See, he's for unity." You said it.
I mean, it goes back to the garbage comment where, they call a group of people garbage. Biden says that, oh, the only garbage I see is, you guys who are calling people garbage. And then they freak out. And somebody had a comment on one of my mutuals. It's like, see, Trump doesn't call people garbage. It's you. That's why you guys are, it's just such trash. Like, basically, and the person responded to that comment with just a spliced together clip of Trump calling everybody else garbage that was like 4.5 minutes long, just like, they're garbage, you're garbage, he's garbage, like everybody garbage. It's like the disconnect is so stark as to they can dish it out constantly, and they don't see it as this hateful, divisive rhetoric, and they cheer it on. And then as soon as you call them a deplorable or you call them garbage one time, and they have a fucking meltdown over it, and oh, you guys are the most hateful people in the world, and it's like, how can you listen to yourself and not just how does your skull not implode on itself? I just cannot wrap my mind around it.
I won't understand that either. And I got a funny story when you said that. It reminded me of it. I had a guy that I used to work with years ago just randomly messaged me out of nowhere. I hadn't heard from this guy in years, and he just randomly messaged me. I knew he was a Trump supporter, but he just randomly messaged me, and he's like, "Hey, man," he's like, I can't remember exactly how he worded it. I'm kind of paraphrasing. It was like, "Hey, never knew you was such a left wing piece of crap," or however he said it. He's like, your little pea brain or something. He said, he basically just talked down to me, And I just came back at him with like, who are you? I came back at him, and when I did, he was like, "Hey, dude, didn't mean for you to take offense." Like, and I'm like, what do you expect for me to say? Like, I mean, I'm not gonna. You came in here saying I had a little brain, and and you never knew I was that stupid, and you never knew I was that big of a piece of crap. But when I say, screw you, it's like, oh, how dare you say that to me? And so I've had it. I've seen Trump. I've seen them do it on TV constantly, but I've had it happen in real time to me too.
You should have just said, "Bless your heart."
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah, I guess so.
come on.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Tyler Childress and you being a full-time songwriter, and I've definitely I think that's how I was introduced to your content was through some of your catchier, more politically driven songs. But
Mm-hmm.
did you kind of start with that right off the bat, or was that just a natural integration? And has that do you still do music at all outside of your social media presence, or is it
Uh,
just here?
not as much gigging as I used to do. I'm still recording music and writing music, but I started off. The songs that I recorded before and the albums I made before. I think if anyone knew me and listened to the lyrics, they could definitely tell where I fell politically, but I wasn't as out front with it. Then when this type of content here took off, for a minute I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I go about this now? And so that's kind of how I started leaning into the more political, satirical type tunes. I had a couple go viral like that. Um, but and what's funny, I did that for so long that one day all of a sudden I stopped in my tracks and went, dang, I've not really wrote a song about how I'm feeling or about maybe a heartbreak I had or I
Yeah.
just been because there's so much content to write about if you start writing songs about MAGA and all the people in it, there's something happening every day that could be a song title, and
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of ventured into that. But I've been back in the studio here recently working on a batch of tunes that are non-political, although there might be one or two that again you could kind of hear it and tell which way I'm going. But yeah, I still play every day, and still enjoy music. I just don't gig as much as I used to because I'm in such a red area. I think I've offended every bar owner and promoter in this part of the world. So probably
So
I've been canceled. So
right. So as a musician and being a progressive musician at that, what did you think of Oliver Anthony's Richmond, north of Richmond? Obviously, we were mostly like, yeah, this is interesting and like good. And then there were some comments on, some of the lyrics were like a little mixed. And he's come out,
Well,
after that and sort of kind of tried to explain that he didn't mean it in kind of the way that it came out in the song.
mm.
But what are your thoughts on his music, that song, all that stuff?
Yeah, I had someone send that to me when it first went viral. I had someone send it, and he's got a good voice. He's delivering it
Yeah,
very well.
right.
And yeah, I'm sitting there listening to it, going, "This is pretty cool, actually." I can relate to this. But then when he got to the part about the I can't remember the exact words now, but it was the part about my tax dollars shouldn't go to buy their box of
oh,
fudge rounds. Like right through there,
mm-hmm.
it's like
For
where I
300
realized it took a
pounds, yeah.
turn. Yeah,
Yeah,
when he went that way with it, I was like, "Oh, now you're kind of now you're punching." And I knew the minute I
Mm-hmm.
heard that, I was like, "That's going to resonate with MAGA." I
right.
knew
Mm-hmm.
instantly. And I think it would have been a completely different song if, when he got to that part, if he'd have just said, if you're, the richest guy in the richest town,
Mm-hmm.
my tax dollars shouldn't go to make you richer. If he'd have said something like that, it would have been a completely different song, completely different
Yeah.
reaction. Um, like I said, I've not really followed him too much after that, but that's kind of to me where I just felt like the song took a turn that I realized instantly who it was going to resonate with.
Right. I had my mom, who I'm pretty sure voted for Trump this time around, send me that, and she's like, "Oh, I saw this, and I thought of you," and I was like, "Yeah, it's close. It's
It's always
almost there.
so close to getting
It's
the point. Always like you're just you're point adjacent. We think we're in the same boat until you hit that one little bump, and it's like, oh yeah,
yeah."
I see what you
And,
mean.
and he has tried to kind of walk that back and say like he just didn't mean to be like kind of punching down. He didn't
Mhm.
mean to be
Hmm.
blaming people that were on welfare.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like that's
But
that's how it comes
yeah, it
across.
perpetuates a harmful stereotype that isn't really a true stereotype either. Like that's not a
No,
thing that exists
Yeah.
in reality the way that they
Reagan made up the welfare queen, and
yeah.
it was one person,
Yeah.
and it was
Mhm.
definitely not widespread and not in the sense that he was trying to portray Black Americans to be.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
and I think that though that song and kind of our analysis of it is really it explains so well the disconnect between the left and the right and messaging and why kind of we've ended up where we've ended up because uh we all have the same problems with the same people. When it gets down to it, we have a ruling class that is oppressing us all, and it definitely oppresses some more than others. But we're all struggling, and they're doing better at our expense across the board. You're either a worker or an owner basically in this world, in this economy. And our infighting is you hear it all the time, and it's cliche, but that infighting is to keep us fighting with ourselves, so we're not actually focused on policy that will make all of our lives better. And it's clearly effective. That's why we are where we are today. But the song's so close. The rich men north of Richmond. It's so close to getting the point, and it does such a great job of encompassing how so many of us feel all the time, like the realities that we live in, and the messaging that Democrats do doesn't do a great job of encompassing that and getting that message across. And I think that's where it falls apart. And I don't know if you have, because you live in the thick of it, obviously. I mean, I live in rural Minnesota, and it's definitely more red than the rest of the state. But it doesn't matter where you go in Tennessee; it's pretty fucking red. Even your cities are fairly red in Tennessee, which
They
is
are.
not the case most places. So,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've told people that. I was talking to some friends. I went to California recently and visited, and I was like, a lot of southern states still have the liberal city. Kentucky has Louisville. For example,
Mm-hmm.
Texas has Austin, but Tennessee really doesn't. I mean, it's like we really don't. I mean, there might be a little small corner of Knoxville that's a little bit more on the hippie side of things, and then you go one
Mm-hmm.
block to the left, and you're right back in Trump country. Um,
There's like I
but
think
yeah, I
some
think
sections of Nashville maybe that feel a little more
yeah, maybe
blue, but I mean it's
yeah,
still a not a liberal city by any means. You don't.
that
There's
yeah,
plenty of
that's
Trump
right.
flags. Last time I was in Nashville.
Oh yeah, and that going back to that song, I definitely when he started it off, the very start of the song, I think everybody was definitely feeling that and could feel that around here. I just think it's interesting too how that a song like that really could have, I think, got a bigger message across, just became politicized so fast.
Hmm.
It kind of got everybody divided really fast. And I'm not saying he intended that to happen. When you write a song, you never know what's going to go. I've told people that because a lot of my musician friends was like, "How did that happen? That guy's never played a gig. That guy's never done anything." I was like, "Well, you don't have to this day and age. I mean, we live in a
Hmm.
digital age where anyone at any given moment, my son could trip and fall out in the yard and go viral. It's like,
Nope.
I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. So, um, the old adage of musicians paying their dues. I mean, I still respect the ones that do. Don't get me wrong, but
Hmm.
you can write a song and I threw up one last. Well, yeah, it was earlier this year. The about the bleach blonde, bad built butch body that when Jasmine Crockett called.
Yeah.
I wrote a song about that and it got like 8 million views. And I was like, holy crap!
Right.
And then now every time I go live, someone's want me to play that, and I'm like, out of all the songs I wrote about all the stuff
Yeah.
I've lived through that I couldn't get people to listen to, they're going to be asking for that from now on. So you never know
Right.
when you write a song where it's going to go, and you also never know how people are going to react. Or so I don't necessarily put I can't put all the blame on him, for anything like that, because it's one of
Right.
those moments where I'm sure he just had like lightning in a bottle and he was like the
Right.
dog that caught the car or chased the car and caught it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it didn't help that CPAC it played it like a week after it was released, like, and then
Hmm.
played it for
Yeah,
like the whole conference. So it's like it got that kind of tinge, which is hilarious, and he thinks it's hilarious too. That those are the people that like immediately caught
right.
on
The
to it.
rich men north of Richmond were the ones playing the
Yeah.
song.
Well,
Like, yeah, the
I
yeah,
know
irony.
and I did even hear Oliver Anthony say that he thought that was odd
Hmm.
that it was
yeah.
them
He's
playing it.
he's
I mean, they
definitely
were those guys.
he's definitely left leaning, according to him. So he
Yeah,
was at least in the way that he's described it from what I've seen. Like he's not going to come out and say it, but he was definitely he
yeah,
felt like those people did not represent of the
Like the song was about you guys, just so you
yeah.
know. Like I didn't know I
well,
needed to
yeah,
explain it, but it was about
And
you
it's funny.
specifically.
Yeah, and what's funny is, how many times have we seen Trump use songs by people who are very left leaning, and it's like, and they
Hmm.
they call for him to stop using their music. That's always comical to me. Like when Republican politicians will start playing Bruce Springsteen, I'm like, have you guys not ever listened to Bruce Springsteen
yeah,
for a minute, like to hear
right.
what he's about? Or
Or
Neil
Rage
Young,
Against the
they'll still,
Machine.
Just listen to the
yeah,
lyrics of "Born in the USA," and it's not the song you think it is. It is not this
yeah.
patriotic anthem that you think it is. But they don't listen beyond that, Or "Fortunate
They
Son,"
just they
like.
just hear born.
Yeah,
Yeah, they just hear "Born in the USA." It's all they hear. Same with like Fortunate Son. I've
To be
seen
fair, he
Republican
does say "Born
politicians
in the
walk out to it.
USA" a lot of
He
times.
does. He does.
He
It is the
does, yeah.
most of the words of the song, I feel like.
Yeah,
But
and that's what they catch on to. And I've heard people catch on to like rocking. I've seen like Republican politicians walk out to Neil Young's "Rocking in the Free World," and I'm like, did you listen to the rest of the song?
nope, nope.
You
Just
know,
just the it
that's what
sounded good to me. I don't need to hear any more. I like this part. I'm gonna stick with that.
Or "Rage Against the Bull," or it's not "Rage Against
yeah,
the Machine," but their Bull song. I forget what it's called, but "Bulls on Parade." Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it when they play that
yeah,
song, and it's like about police brutality.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, it's a meme at this point, but the conservatives being like, "Rage Against the Machine was good till they got all political and shit," and it's like
yeah,
all of they say this all the time about these musicians when they realize it's like, yeah, all those songs were about you in not a good way, man, and you've just been
yeah,
rocking out to them the whole time, just not realizing it, and yeah,
yeah.
like
I'm a
welcome to
big
the
fan of.
party. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Drive-By Truckers. I actually got one of their shirts on at the moment, but
Hmm.
they've always been a very progressive left-leaning band. But a lot of times back in the day when they wrote their songs, they kind of wrote them like more from a historical sense. So they would go back and their songs was kind of based back in the '60s and '70s. Anyone that
Hmm.
listened to it to me could definitely know where they stood. But what's funny is like once Trump came along in 2016, they put out an album and it was straight up in today's world. They weren't going back
Yep.
in time and doing that. They were
Hmm.
talking about what was happening right then. They were naming names. And I can't count the people that used to stand next to me at shows going, I can't believe these guys, a bunch of libtards. And I was like, well, was you not listening? Like, how did you miss that? Like, how did anyone miss it? I mean, I remember standing next to a guy one time in Knoxville, Tennessee, and there was a guy came in waving a Confederate flag, and Mike Cooley, the singer, just stopped. He's like, "Hey, you get that out of here. We don't stand for that." He just said it. He didn't mix words. And
Hmm.
then later on, my friend's like, "I can't believe he was that way," and I'm like, how did you not know that was coming? Like, I don't, you didn't hear certain songs where he directly had already talked about that. It's they don't. A lot of times people don't zero in on what someone's really saying in a song or what they're about.
Well, and you mentioned him at the beginning of this episode, but kind of your inspiration for this was Tyler Childress, and he's another one who was the darling of the what would we call it? Still outlaw country today? I guess I don't know what
Yeah,
what we're labeling. The non-mainstream country artists like Coulter Wall and Tyler Childress, and
yeah,
he definitely wrote a very folky Appalachian perspective, and he didn't paint the political stuff on super heavy, but you didn't have to scratch the surface very hard to hear it. And then he finally came out and he just made specific songs that were very political, and they all lost their fucking minds over it. And it's like
yeah,
he's been doing this the whole time. He's been speaking on the injustices of the nation that affect these people that vote against their own interests constantly. I mean, the people in rural Tennessee and Kentucky and West Virginia are as oppressed as any minority group, except for the color of their skin and the outright they get the minor pass of that, but they live in abject poverty. They have less access to resources than most, and they suffer from all of the same policies that seek to hurt these minority communities, and they still vote for those policies because they still see the minority communities as the other, and they'll cut off their nose to spite their face. And I mean, that's a common theme with conservatives across the board. But he'd been speaking to that in like a very subtle way for a long time, and then he just got a little less subtle about it, and they lost their mind about it, and he was perfectly willing to do interviews and talk about it and be like, if you don't like it, fuck you, I don't need you listening to my music, basically.
yeah,
This is a real problem, and you would do best to listen, but I'm not gonna stand aside while you subjugate these people quietly. So
yeah. And I've heard Jason Isbell's another artist that kind of did the same thing that Tyler did, just started being more open about it in the songs and then in interviews. And I've seen people make comments like, well, when I pay to go see somebody play, I'm not going to hear their politics. They should shut up and sing. And I'm like, no, if you're going to see someone, it's the platform they built for themselves. you know, and they have a right to stand on whatever side they want to. You know, there's artists out there that I don't agree with politically. Probably wouldn't want to go see them do a show, but I'm not going to sit back and say they shouldn't do that, or you know that I'm spending my money to see you sing something else. It's like, you know, it's like no, that's their platform, and you're free to
I think of
do
like
with
Kid
it what
Rock.
you wish.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah, he's a great example.
I've
of that.
enjoyed Kid Rock songs before, and like now that he is like outwardly like just so mega, like if one of his songs comes on, I'm not gonna be like turn that shit off. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, it's Kid Rock. Like, all right. Like,
and I certainly ain't gonna pay to go see him. But if he wants
Right.
to get up on stage at his shows, and you know,
yes, this is prerogative.
that's his prerogative. If
Yeah.
if he wants to pretend to be something other than a white kid from a wealthy suburb, I mean,
Was he one of
wrap
the ones
himself
who
in a Confederate flag and
Was he one of the ones who shot a case of Bud Light?
Yeah.
Even though he's never fucking drank Bud Light before.
Oh, he does drink. He still drinks Bud Light. That's the thing
does
is
he?
he
Yeah.
was drinking Bud Light, and then he got caught right after that stunt in one of his own clubs, drinking Bud Light like a tall boy of Bud Light, and he didn't
boy.
take it out of any of his bars or anything like that. It's a he's a
Yeah, also, there
grifter,
was
just
one
like
video,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. There was one video of him where he was being interviewed on TV, and I think he had like on a Budweiser shirt or hat. I can't remember which one. I think it was a hat, and he takes it off. It's like, oh yeah, you know, my bad. Like, I think that. I mean, I think, you know, like you said, there's some of his songs in the past that I used to get into it when I heard them, but I don't know, some of the stuff like that one he wrote, "We the People" or whatever it's called. That stuff just sounds like he's phoning it in, man. It's like he just grabbed every MAGA cliche he could think of and just put it in a blender, you know. But yeah,
but it does well
going
with
back
him,
to
though.
something you said a minute ago. Going back to something you said a minute ago when you talking about Tyler Childers, you know, writing about this part of the world and how people around here are brought up. I've always said too that, you know, down here in the South, everybody is just taught from a young age in the churches that the Democrats are of the devil, and they get taught that so much that they'll vote for anyone. They'll vote against their own interest. There's people like we have Marsha Blackburn here in Tennessee. She just won re-election by like, you know, it was like 70-30. You know, then we have Mitch McConnell over in Kentucky. When I'm traveling around playing music, I've never really bumped into people, if I got on a political discussion, who loves Mitch McConnell or who loves Marsha Blackburn. It's not like they go crazy over them. And if you told them how crooked they were, they'd probably agree with you. But they would follow it up by going, well, and if you said to them, well, why did you vote for him? Well, at least they ain't a Democrat, you know.
Yep.
That's the narrative they bought around here, and I think that's going to be a hard
And I
narrative
mean-
to unravel.
I think that's partially the Democrats' fault, but also like it's just kind of like somewhat true in that like both sides are pro-capitalist and pro-exploitation of workers in that sense, but also the Democrats' messaging has just been completely devoid of anything that remotely resonates with working class since what?
The mid
Mondale,
60s.
after Jimmy Carter, like
Even honestly, I wouldn't even give Jimmy Carter that much credit for that. It was basically Nixon's Southern strategy and bringing the working class over to the Republican Party. The hard hat riots and all of that stuff. Like it. Since then, it's been the same, and Democrats kind of wrote it off after that. And they had enough, you know, coastal elite, university type, whatever base to keep that on. Had enough old guard Democrats to keep being competitive in elections. And Democrats do not adjust quickly to any change whatsoever. And
Clearly, no,
Republicans,
you're right.
yeah, Republicans embraced. They picked an issue, they embraced it, and they've gone, you know, full speed ahead into it. And it may not be. There are more people who would identify as Democrat than Republican, but they don't bleed. That's not their football team. It's just how, like, if I've got to pick one or the other, I'm gonna pick this one. But Republicans, that is their football team. This is their team.
That's a
They
great
live
point.
and die it. They wear those colors, and so it's a more loyal base that they can get to the polls more reliably. And that's why it's like if we turn out, we win. And it's so true is there's more people who identify on the left, but they they don't identify with the party on the left, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and it's hard to get people on the left to come together because everybody has a difference of opinion on how we go about things. I've used this analogy earlier today when I had a guy on my podcast, a guest. I was like, if I said, and I'd say it to you guys, if I said to you guys, hey guys, let's go do this, if I tried to pump you up and get you ready to go to do something, you're going to stop and you're going to question what it is that I'm saying, and you may not agree with me, and you may say, well, I'm not up for that. What I'm saying. It's much easier to get, like you said, they wear it like a team, and they're gonna embrace it, and they're no matter what they say, they're gonna fight to the death for it. And so it's easier to get people like that riled up and ready to do something or go vote, because they think that way. I think a lot of people. The part that's most disheartening about this election is so many people stayed home. It's like, okay, so if you felt that compelled to vote in 2020, if you realize just how awful things were then, and now you've seen everything this guy has done since he left, including January 6th and everything else, you saw all that, but then decided to set this one out. It's like that's one part that will always stump and confuse me. But it's harder to get people on our side unified and motivated and all going in the same direction, because I don't mean to sound condescending when I say this, but we all have a mind of our own.
Yeah.
We all have our own way of thinking about things, and it's harder. When I play in a band, I've got about musicians that I call. I've got 3 or 4 bandmates, and we'll sit around after we get done playing music and have political conversations, but we'll all 4 disagree on certain issues completely. And it would be hard to get us motivated to go in one direction or not. You know what I mean? It's just a different. I think it's a different way of thinking, and I think they're an easier crowd for Trump to work because they do, like you said, it's a team sport to them.
I guess I think that gives too much of a pass to the Democratic Party, just by saying like, oh, it's just harder to get people that are not crazy Democrats, but probably lean that way out to vote. I think that allows the malignancy that we've seen in the Democratic Party since Hillary Clinton was the nominee.
Yeah, I don't think that he's giving a pass to it. I think he's making an observation.
I mean, I feel like there's more definitive ways that we can talk about how like the Democratic Party has failed to even really to attempt to bring in voters, rather than just kind of categorically saying that like Republicans are more likely to vote because that's their team. Like
I agree. I agree 100%.
it's a fair observation, but I
But I
think
think
there's
understanding
something we can do about it.
Yeah, no, I do, but I
I
think
agree.
people need to understand why they have this easy way to get people out to vote and go along with whatever the team is going along with, and we don't. And part of it, I think, just to expand on what you were saying, is the Democratic Party is an umbrella party of a bunch of really smaller ideologies, right? You've got everybody from center right, center area, what we would consider a moderate, probably what would be considered right leaning in most of the rest of the world, to communists and everybody in between. If they're going to vote for a major political party in the United States, the Democratic Party is their party. And what, the person who would identify as a communist is going to think we should be doing, and what there's going to be a valuable policy to them, is almost going to be the polar opposite to what the person who would be that moderate center person is going to be. And all the Democrats ever focus on is that moderate center person, like the moderate center voter is their only focus.
I do agree with that, and I think I've had that conversation with my bandmates because, like I said, we're all 4 very different. Hey, the bass player I play with will tell you out loud she's a socialist. She doesn't even mix words about it. She says I'm a socialist. So, then I was more of your Bernie. I was more of your Bernie guy, and then the guitar player was always more of a more moderate, and he was for Hillary. So I think what I meant by that more than anything is it's just harder to get us. There can be that one issue that will cause someone on the left to just stay home. Like it can just be a simple issue, or not necessarily a
Gaza,
simple
I
issue.
think,
but
was a
just
big
one.
one. We were just talking about
That's
that before.
one. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Stuff like that. It can be one issue that will make someone go, well, I'm writing in a third party, or I'm staying home. We saw that in 2016. And I don't, I can't imagine the Republicans necessarily doing that. I mean, I'm not saying that any didn't. There very well could have been someone that wrote in RFK Jr. or Jill, or not, probably not Jill Stein, but you know what I'm saying. They could have been someone that did it. But I just think that, and I agree with you when you say that they just try to appeal to that moderate crowd, and I think they'd be better served to try to bring in everybody.
I mean, that's partially what I'm saying, is that by them sort of forcing Hillary on us is that, I don't want to say arrogance, but like that they know better, which is definitely what it was.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is like, we can talk about how it's like Republicans are more loyal all day long, but like the Democratic Party is the party that we potentially have some sort of say in.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
that's what we need to focus on today. It's not about how many people voted for Trump and how many people are just like crazy for MAGA. We need to be talking about how the failings of this party as a whole, we do need to hold them accountable. And there are just incredibly popular policies that they just completely disregard, and it's utter failing.
And I think on that, and what you mentioned earlier was, you thought that the Trump was going to lose and the Republican Party was going to be forced to rebrand, and now we're looking at ourselves, and we're in the position, eating that humble pie that you were hoping they were going to be in. And you're saying you think that we can learn and we can rebrand from this. And I mean, I think in a theoretical sense we can, for sure. In a practical sense, we had the same thing happen in 2016, to a lesser extent in 2011. We saw at least the flaws in the system as it was, and the shortcomings that the party had in that election, and so on. And every election we have done the same thing. The most outrageous we got was, we're like, hey, let's try a brown one, and that was successful that one time, and like maybe sort of do something on healthcare.
I think Obama earned that nomination, bar none.
Oh no,
he
he absolutely earned,
help.
and that was the best messaging the Democratic Party has done.
Well, that's because it wasn't the Democratic Party messaging.
Right. It was his
messaging. It was
yeah.
specifically directly Obama's messaging.
But that's what makes it even more frustrating, is we knew what we were doing wrong before, we knew what was working,
right,
and then we went back to what we were doing before. We went right back from, obviously, people want a younger, more charismatic candidate who is bringing, at least giving lip service to more progressive policies.
Or
talking
at least change. Like maybe not even just like, Trump's clearly not like saying progressive policies, but he is saying we will do change, and that's what people liked about Obama, is he gave them hope for change. And Hillary, the only thing she was going to change is that there's a X chromosome instead of a Y chromosome in the presidency. And I said the same thing about Kamala, is I'm worried that she's not going to change anything in the presidency as far as her policies go for average Americans. Just that she's going to be the first black woman to be the president. Like I that was my worry, and I feel like that was the legitimate cause of her losing.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%,
and I think
that's what's frustrating. So I don't know.
No, go ahead.
I don't know, what your vision of like rebranding in the party is. I'm a little bitter, and I have a little I've lost a lot of faith in the Democratic Party's willingness to do that type of rebranding, because like I said, we saw it happen. We saw what our problems were. We saw it happen. Then we went back to the old way, and now we've done that again since Obama. It's been the same shit every single time. Hillary, Biden, now Kamala is. Go ahead.
I agree with that, and I think this is a healthy conversation to be having. Earlier, I did a podcast with TJ from TikTok, because his power is taken, not given. We were talking, and at one point during the conversation, we began breaking down where we thought we got it wrong, and we were, being critical of the Democratic Party. And as we were doing that, I saw so many commenters getting so mad, like, stop, don't. One commenter said, "I'm going to leave while you guys are doing an autopsy. If you guys are going to do an autopsy, I'm out." And I'm like, well, this is the time to do it. I mean, we have to reflect. We have to have that conversation, and we have to realize we're not going to always see it eye to eye or agree on every single issue. So I think it's a good conversation to have. And I don't know, as far as, like you made a great point. We had this opportunity to rebrand before and come up with something. And we always, the Democratic establishment always seems to fall back on that same tactic that does come off. You almost used the word arrogant a while ago, but it does kind of come off that way to the working class. That's like, oh, so we really liked this guy that was saying, like Bernie, for example. We really liked him for what he was saying, but you're gonna force us to be for this established candidate. And I think that's a lot of what people, and at least in my part of the world, I know that they resist that because they don't. And Trump is. We also earlier on my channel made some people mad because we were saying that Trump is, and we weren't saying he was a good dude or he's a good person. None of those things. We were just saying he resonates with his crowd. Whether you love him or not, he resonates with that audience.
Yeah, of course.
Don't fully understand how. It makes no sense. Sometimes I like, how could anyone resonate with that? But it does. And we're going to have to resonate with our side, and instead of going back to that just career politician and being like, oh no, you guys are forced to get behind this.
Well, and I don't even like the career politician aspect. Like, certainly Hillary was that, and Joe Biden was that. I don't even think that Kamala was a huge career politician.
I mean, that's been her career. If you consider being
she had
a prosecutor and stuff,
extensive career in law before
Right, yeah.
elected as attorney general. So, like, in that sense, I think she's been around politics, but like she only ran for Senate. She was only in Senate for one term, right?
yeah,
I think
yeah,
so.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was one term.
Right. Same with Obama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, she was still in elected positions for a long time, and politically adjacent. And I don't know if I would. She's technically, if you're running for something, you're technically a politician, I guess, at that point. So it's been her career.
Yeah.
That's splitting hairs. That's here nor there. It's about perspective. Obviously, Bernie's a career politician. And
But God, does
we
he-
all got behind Bernie. And
Yeah.
so I don't think that the career politician thing is necessarily the problem. I think it's the type of politician and how you resonate with the people. Is your message resonating with people? Are they feeling heard or not? And whether you've been, in the Senate for 200 years like Bernie has, or you are brand new to it, I think the criticisms of career politicians come with the longer you are in that sphere, the more time you have to fall susceptible to money in politics. And I think the more time you have to lose touch with the people you're supposed to be representing, because you are now operating in a completely different sphere than any of us will ever operate in. And I think that's where the negative connotation towards career politicians. But I don't think inherently being a career politician is a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems
No,
like
I don't.
Bernie is.
I don't think so
an
either.
Anomaly.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think I do agree with that. I think what we've seen is they trying to turn it over to Trump. I mean, it's like this is totally backwards. But just because the most qualified person doesn't always, they're not always the one that wins. It's like they should be. I mean, in any other field, you would have to be more qualified to get the job. But when you're running for office, I mean, in all fairness, Obama wasn't as qualified as a John McCain. I mean, as far as I'm just talking about as far as qualifications go, and
was
Trump definitely
a
wasn't
lawyer, though,
as
right?
qualified as Hillary was. So and Kamala was way more qualified than Trump ever was. So
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah, no, Hillary was up until Kamala ran the most qualified person to ever run for president. But
Yeah.
Besides not running for office that many times, I think that was the only big thing that I didn't appreciate, is that she held offices that were appointed.
yeah, that's true. I mean, she was a senator though, wasn't she?
I don't think so.
She wasn't.
Not a United States senator.
She was from New York though. State senator.
She might.
Yeah,
have
I'm
been
pretty
a
sure
state
she was New York State senator. I'm pretty sure.
senator. Was she?
Yeah.
Just
But
do
I
some,
mean,
live fact checking here.
yeah. She, but she was Secretary of State, obviously appointed position, like you were saying, and she had a law degree. She was First Lady, which is, not a qualification in and of itself, but she utilized that role, I'd say, more than most first ladies. She was very hands-on.
Sure, I was wrong. A two-term
Yeah, she was.
state senator or United States senator from New York.
Yeah, United States senator,
Yeah,
correct?
United
Yeah,
States senator.
I was pretty sure she was senator.
Yeah, me too. I had a brain fog there for a minute.
I just don't. I mean, obviously, 2001 to 2009, I was like maybe 15 by the time that she was out of office.
Right.
So, like, I definitely
Yeah.
wasn't plugged into Hillary Clinton.
But I mean, she had the qualifications. She had foreign policy experience. You know, as Secretary of State, Secretary of State's a huge job,
Oh,
like
yeah.
a huge job that gives you all kinds of qualification.
For sure.
She had probably more qualification in the executive branch than anybody who'd ever run, being, you know, First Lady and then Secretary of State and then some of the various other positions she's held in the White House over the years. So I think, I don't know. But again, yeah, qualification. She wasn't a likable, relatable person. She definitely phoned that campaign in, I think, up and down. And like every chance she had to, a little bit of effort would have went a long way. She wasn't willing to put it in.
Well, I don't even think it's effort. I think she put in effort, but she was in it for meeting with $100,000 seat donors. She was not.
Well, it's
She
funny.
ran the opposite campaign of Bernie Sanders.
Right. But that's what I was saying. Anytime there was a chance to put in a little bit of effort that would have went a long way as far as
Sure.
garnering voters, like, you know, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz thing is just always what sticks out to me. When Debbie
Yeah.
Wasserman Schultz got caught, you know, red-handed basically running the DNC and actively conspiring against Bernie Sanders as the head of the DNC. And she stepped down because of it, as much of an admission of guilt as we're going to get, along with, you know, pretty irrefutable evidence that she did it with those emails. The Hillary campaign hired her right up and made her a campaign manager. And I was like, all you had to do was just not that. Like, you had to just not hire her and be like, we don't appreciate this type of behavior. We didn't know that they were doing this, and we think her stepping down and getting somebody more impartial on board is the right call. And then just don't fucking hire her. Like, she literally went out of her way to do the wrong thing in that situation and disenfranchised millions of voters who felt betrayed by the party. And it's like
Yeah.
just how hard is it to just not hire somebody? Like, you didn't even have to fire them; you just had to not hire them. It was so simple.
Well, and the
Yeah.
whole super delegate thing, I cannot believe that is a real thing that happens.
Yeah.
Super, like, are you kidding me? Are you trying to make it seem like there's no democratic primary process? Because you just proved to every conservative Republican out there who maybe would have voted Democrat
Yeah.
that there is no democratic process at large within the DNC.
Nope. Yeah. The fact that she never visited Minnesota and Wisconsin and I mean all those blue wall states. What did she visit Pennsylvania like once or something? Like all those blue wall states she took for granted that Trump was here. You know, it's just all those a little bit of effort would have went a long way type of thing. You know, would
Yeah.
she have won Wisconsin had she just showed up here one time? Would she have won Pennsylvania had she showed up there a couple times? Maybe. You know,
Yeah,
I don't know.
true.
Sorry, that was a bit of a rant.
No, I mean,
I
I
get off
think-
on the Hillary thing.
I think it's important to dwell on that for a little bit because I think that's sort of like where the DNC thought, oh, we had Obama and we really like him, so that means that if we really like somebody, then they're gonna do well. And they were like, yep, that's the strategy. Clearly, we know who's good because we had Obama, even though we definitely didn't want him at the first.
Right.
Then they just continue that with Hillary, and then they tried it again with Joe Biden, and then now they didn't. Potentially is partially Biden's fault, but also the DNC. They could have ran an open primary, which it makes sense to not do during an incumbency. But considering the circumstances of Biden and his age and just unpopularity, why would you not do it? Like maybe it's unprecedented, but
Yeah.
it's their fault. The DNC gave away the election by not allowing for a primary.
I wanna roll it back even further. I think it all could have been avoided, and running Biden to begin with was the biggest mistake. But
in 2020.
2020 made the bed for today, right? Because 2020 we were going to win the White House almost no matter what. It felt like you could have ran a flaming bag of dog shit and that still would have won the White House in 2020. And we're like, all right, let's take the oldest motherfucker on planet Earth and put him there. And we know that he's going to be 436 years old the next time he has to run. But let's just go with it and see what the fuck happens. And then we do that. And then he's too fucking old to do it. And now we completely throw away our incumbency advantage. We have this clusterfuck of a situation where it's like, do we just force Kamala on everybody and not give the voters a chance to decide? Because it's too late to run a primary by the time he stepped aside.
Yeah, it was.
What are we going to do at that point? And so, I mean, they rolled with the best punch I think that they had at that time. But why did it have to be Joe Biden? There was countless other better candidates out there, I
mean, they should have ran an open election at the DNC like they used to do back in the FDR days, and have the delegates vote that were promoted throughout the party, throughout the voting process. That's what they should have done.
Which is technically, I think, what they did.
Well, on paper.
Yeah.
But when they endorsed Kamala, they basically just were like, yeah, this is who you're going to vote for again.
Yeah.
When she had all the baggage of the Biden administration and none of the time, and frankly, none of the charisma or ability to sort of shed that baggage and that weight and say, like, yeah, I'm going to do things differently. She didn't do that. She didn't have time to do and say any of those things.
No. I don't know. We've been talking a lot. You got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, and two, I think a VP, it's always a little bit harder for them to run because they do have the baggage of the administration they've been in. I mean, there's been a couple down through history, like George H.W. Bush comes to mind, was a VP that made it over the finish line. But a lot of times that is harder when you run that. It's one of those things. I think we could sit here honestly, and we could Monday morning quarterback it for the rest of the afternoon. It's one of those things you look back on. But I just feel like after seeing that map light up the way that it did, and in today's political climate, I just think Trump was poised. I don't know who could have beat him. I've talked to people. It's like, well, what if Joe Biden stayed in? Well, I think they would have just, I mean, after that debate performance, I mean, imagine if he'd actually tried to do 2 more debates with Trump and all the material they would have had. I don't think that would have been the right move. It's one of those things. We're going to look back on this one for a long time, guys. But I do think we can get through it.
Well, we don't really have a choice, we have to get through it.
We have to.
You will, wake up tomorrow. The sun will shine, and for right now, we're not living in Handmaid's Tale, where there's no threat that didn't exist yesterday to your existence necessarily, at least an imminent threat. Obviously Donald Trump has made a lot of threats about a lot of groups of people, but he's not in a position to make those come to reality yet. He hasn't moved to do anything of that nature yet. Rightfully, it's fair to feel disappointed that he's gonna have 4 years and 2 years of a trifecta in Congress. But, we do, I hate to use Kamala's speech, but like, roll up your sleeves and get back to work. Like, honestly, I was talking to my wife, like a week or two ago about the podcast, and I was sort of like, if Kamala wins, I don't even know, like, if I have the heart to like continue, like we've talked about this like pressing issue, but like I'm feeling like just this constant like fight against just like classic exploitation by the ruling class. Like it's kind of dragging on me, and I don't know if I could continue. But if Trump wins, like I almost feel obligated to be a voice that is
speaking out. Feel like you're doing something,
an
at
educated
least.
voice that can speak to what's happening around the world, and if there's anything to be done, what can be done about it.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think everybody in this room, so to speak, you included, you're not physically in the room with us,
And all of our listeners
Yeah.
and all of our
who
listeners
are
for
here with
sure.
us.
Yeah.
uh, I think we all feel some of that responsibility and obligation. I know I did coming into this, that it was like I need to direct my content. I very intentionally directed my content towards hopefully the goal of getting, uh, you know, the next step not being a backward step. And I feel like we failed at that, but like I felt that I have a platform and I have a responsibility to do that. And at least I felt like I did something. I tried. I did with the resources that were available to me to this point. I've been trying, and I think I'd feel worse if I had this opportunity and didn't move forward with it. So I think that's a fair point, and I don't know. I feel like that's what
Yeah.
you do with your content and music as well, but I don't want to put words in your
Yeah.
mouth.
No, I feel the same way. Like I said earlier, I did. I went to bed thinking, "Hey, dang, am I gonna be able to do this tomorrow?" And then woke up going, "I kind of have to do it. I just have to keep going." I feel like that. The issues at hand are too important to stay silent on. We gotta keep pushing forward. And I know here we go again with the Kamala's phrases, but
Mhm.
when she said we're not going back, I mean, I guess we're going to be back under a Trump presidency, but that doesn't mean we have to succumb and go back to that ideology. We can still keep
Mhm.
trying to push our message out, and and hopefully, people. I think. I mean, I hate to say this, but I really feel like that there's going to come the day that the people that voted for Trump, the ones that are flexing now, I really feel like there's going to come the day that they're going to be like in the same boat with us. It just hasn't hit them yet,
Mhm.
And I hate to say it, but I think once something happens to them, we may see a turnaround, and hopefully we'll have someone on our side of the aisle that can resonate and bring people back.
Yeah, I mean, 2 points to that. One is I definitely am now have a lot more of the feeling like it's like, okay, you got your guy, you got your Senate and House. Like,
Mhm.
if you think you know what to do, like, let's see it happen. Like, let's prove,
Exactly.
put that proof in the pudding, make it happen. And let's see if the country actually reacts the way that you think they are going to. And then the second part of me, the
Exactly.
more cynical side, is thinking, well, yeah, that's sort of how a lot of German liberals felt in 1933 and mid
Yeah.
1930s. Is like, well,
Yeah.
hasn't happened yet, right?
Mhm.
And like, I'm sort of like hovering between those two realities. I feel like.
No. Well, I think we are. It's definitely going to be a long, bumpy road from here. Thankfully there'll be plenty of content to make
I'm
in the
not hearing you
meantime. So
guys. If
it's kind of janky, guys. If the sound quality now sounds poor, we had to bring him in over a phone line because our internet connection has been going in and out. Uh, but I think that yeah. Did you have any closing thoughts for us on that?
Yeah, like where we were at there at the end, I was just saying, we just got to keep putting in the work and moving forward like we pretty much have to. And I thank you guys so much for having me on the show, and would love to have you guys on my channel sometime. It's been a really good time sitting and talking with you guys, and I'm so glad you reached out.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to be on your show as well, and I'm glad you were willing to come on here. I want to let you plug yourself too before we go. Let everybody know where to find you if you have any pet projects you're working on, sell music, sell merch, whatever. Yeah,
Cool.
let the people
Yeah.
know.
You can go to my YouTube channel. It's Tennessee Brando if you spell Tennessee out all the way. Then on TikTok it's TN underscore Brando, and it's TN underscore Brando on Instagram as well. But I post most of my content to YouTube, and my merch store is all connected there, so it's kind of a one stop. If you go to my channel, you can find the store from there, and so. Yeah, and I'm also on Facebook as Tennessee Brando, so I'm pretty much all over the board, but YouTube's where most of my stuff can be found.
All right. Well, thank you again so much. I love your content, love your
Thank
music. You
you.
guys need to check him out. Again, that's Tennessee Brando. And as always, we appreciate you guys coming here and listening every week. Our merch, offyourwagon.com. You can get the Let the Meat Toast merch and our regular merch. Our subscriptions are available through Patreon and YouTube, and that helps us out. But obviously, your support just listening and tuning in And yeah, I'll be looking forward to doing more stuff here with you, Brando. And
Absolutely.
I appreciate you taking some time for us today, so last minute, and
Thank
bearing
you.
with us through all of our technical difficulty
Hey,
problems.
no problem at all, man. I love your stuff, and it was an honor to sit and talk with you.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too. Thank you.
And thank you all for listening and being here. And we will see you next week.